What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be NHL, MLB, NFL, or NBA. We're here to cover it. And in today's episode, Nick, we've done a lot of rankings of the teams themselves, defenses, offense, tight ends, QBs, wide receivers, running backs, offensive lines, you name it all. But in today's episode, it's time to take a look at the other side of things and the coaching. And today, we each made our own list. Don't know who's on yours, who's on mine. The top 10 head coaches in the NFL heading into this season. And I'm very curious, what we have similar, what we have different. And I think these are going to be very interesting lists. I think the only spot where we may have the same person in the same spot is number one, and then after that I think it gets a lot of arguments. You could go different ways. I saw another podcast do this, and it was very decisive. So I'm very excited to see what our list has, and where we are similar, kind of in the same ballpark, and where we differentiate a little bit. So with that being said, Nick, I say, for the sake of surprises, we just get number one out of the way right now. You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm kind of curious now that you say, you think we got the same one. So
I hope it's the same one. If not, I think a lot of people in the comments would definitely disagree. My number one is Andy Reid right now. I think he has to be the Mount Rushmore of basically what a great head coach is. Just the way he's adapted his offense, always has them ready, and he's kind of been overlooked a little bit in the part of it's just Patrick Mahomes, but it's Andy Reid too. That is what makes this team going. And so with that being said, I want to give him a huge shout out. So with that being said, Nick, though, now we head into the number two spot, and I want to know who you have at number two, because like I said, I think number one might be the only spot we were consensus on.
Okay. I honestly think when I was making my list, I was pretty confident we were both going to have Andy Reid at one, but I'm pretty confident we're going to have the same two. My number two coach is Kevin Stefanski. So, and I know you're really high on him, so that's the main reason why I thought. I just say that because, he won Coach of the Year. He took that Browns team to the playoffs after, an atrocious quarterback situation. And I think if he's given the right quarterback piece, he can make that team really, really dangerous. Just he was kind of dealt a shitty hand with, the general manager and front office making him have Deshaun Watson for, $200 million. He kind of has to use him now. So.
Yeah, he's really high on my list. Not quite two, but I mean, we're thinking the same ballpark, so that's fine by me.
Okay.
At number two, I went with a guy who's kind of been overlooked these last couple of years, but I think he was really the main catalyst for this new offensive innovation head coaches that teams look for. I'm going with number two, Sean McVay of the LA Rams. He obviously, as soon as he came into the league, made a huge impact on Jared Goff after starting with Jeff Fisher, and he kind of became the new offensive up-and-coming mind, lead surgeon. And he's already, even so young as a head coach, has already branched out a bunch of his coordinators to head coaching jobs. And what he's just done in the short time, made the playoffs pretty much almost every year. His peak is obviously win the Super Bowl 2 years ago, or 3 years, 2022, early on. And then they have a little bit of a down season with injuries and stuff, but then what do they do this season? Come right back up, be a solid wild card team. Almost beat the Lions in the wild card, and who knows if they go on a run. But the way he transformed a fifth round, sixth round receiver, Puka Nacua, into a top 10 wide receiver last season, the way he just kind of uses all of his players effectively and just gets the most out of his players and the most out of his rosters, and just that Super Bowl accomplishment, I have to give him some credit. I'm going to give him the number two spot.
I'm not mad at that. He's on my list. He's not as high as you have him, though. But I'll give you that. I respect Sean McVay. Yeah. I'll give you that for sure.
So
do you want to go your number three?
All right, yeah, we can do two. Number 3, a coach that would probably have 5 or a couple Super Bowls if Andy Reid number 1 didn't exist. I'm going to go Kyle Shanahan at my number 3 spot. He's just an offensive genius. And just the way he utilizes all the different chess pieces, you're able to plug in Jimmy Garoppolo, plug in the last pick in the NFL draft, Brock Purdy, and make him look like a top 10 quarterback and an MVP candidate. Kyle Shanahan, I know he has his moments in the Super Bowl where people question his, play calling or stuff, but you can't question the regular season and just the overall success he's had with the Niners and just, coming up just short, losing to the best in the world in Mahomes and Andy Reid. How much can I deduct you for that? He's still one of the best in the league. 49ers always have a top offense, and it really goes to show whoever you're able to plug in there and just get the most out of them. I love Kyle Shanahan. And like I said, if it wasn't for number 1 Andy Reid and the best quarterback right now, he might have a couple Super Bowls of his own, and we're talking about him at 1. So, at the end of the day, it is what it is, but he's still a great coach and always has that team ready to play.
Okay. Another, I think for this list, we're probably going to have a lot of the same coaches on the list, just in different spots.
Yeah.
So my number 3 was a guy who really hasn't been to a Super Bowl in a little bit, but I still think he's one of the better coaches who just doesn't have an incredibly talented roster. I have Mike Tomlin, just because he's been able to keep some of those really awful Steelers offenses above 500, and sometimes even in the playoffs, like last year, where they just have the defense that carries them in every year. So maybe that's a shout out to his defensive coordinator and his defensive staff, and their drafting and stuff. But I just think it's shocking how they can have guys like Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett leading their offense and still somehow get 8, 9, even 10 wins and make the playoffs. So,
oh yeah,
some might disagree on that one. Some people, I've heard call Mike Tomlin overrated, and he's like he's a mid merchant. Like he's just playing to get over 500, but you're not playing to win. What are you doing?
Mid merchant. That's funny. I like that. He's obviously a really good coach. At number 4, though, this is where I slide Kevin Stefanski right in there. 2-time Coach of the Year winner. Back in 2020, first season with Baker Mayfield, instantly makes that playoff team. They almost beat the Chiefs in the divisional round to go on to make the Super Bowl. And then he's had a couple of weird years, obviously, with quarterback problems, but just what he was able to do last year, 5-1 with Deshaun Watson starting, and Deshaun Watson was not good in those 6 games, so don't get twisted. And then just plugging Joe Flacco in off his couch. Flacco's dropping 40 against the Jets defense and falling asleep during the game. I mean, that was a great Linsanity run for Joe Flacco, just making the playoffs, winning 11-plus games. This guy's just a genius. And that team, even though it's to win a 2-time Coach of the Year with the Cleveland Browns, one of the most dysfunctional franchises, Kevin Stefanski has brought some stability there. That can't be said. And he was rewarded with a nice contract extension, rightfully so. He's at my number 4, definitely a top 5 head coach in this league. The guy's just a straight up baller. He knows what it takes to win. And just given what he's been able to do despite all this quarterback play, having to play, I think, 4 quarterbacks last year, PJ Walker to beat the Niners, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson. Just whoever's there, Cleveland still wins. They still put up points. Got to give Kevin Stefanski a lot of credit for that. So he's at my number 4.
Okay. Yep. A lot of good points. My number 4 is a guy. I don't know if you're going to agree with this one, but you might. I don't know. I don't know if other people will agree with this one, but I'm really high on him, even though he hasn't been in the NFL for a little while. I have Jim Harbaugh at 4. I think he's like a top tier head coach. I think he was the best, at least this year, the best head coach in college football. I know Nick Saban has, had that title for God knows how long. It was like him and Bill Belichick when, those two were running the football world. But I think Jim Harbaugh is going to come in and, adjust just fine to this NFL, because I know it's been When did he leave the NFL? Like 2015?
Yeah, 2014, 2015.
So it's been, 10 years and a lot has changed since he's been a head coach, but I think him, being at a high level in college, knowing how to get all those players ready for the NFL, I think that's really going to help him, and it has helped him get ready for this new NFL. So I think he's I think he's going to be up there, and I think he's going to be clip this. I think he's going to be, a coach of the year finalist. I think if the Chargers make the playoffs, 10, 11 wins, I think he'll be a finalist.
I like that take. Yeah, he's definitely, when he was in the NFL, he knew how to coach. 3 straight NFC championship games, Super Bowl appearance. They almost won it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the time in college has maybe helped him, or, what adjustments he has to learn back in the NFL. At my number 5, I have Mike Tomlin. Still, to be 500 with some of these teams, Kenny Pickett starting, just a rotation door of Mason Rudolph. It's been ugly. Big Ben on his last horse. He's just found a way to win. And I got to respect that for him. And it's not, a mid-merchant. I know, people on social media will tweet that, but he does. The rosters and quarterback play hasn't been sustainable to win 11-plus games or anything like that. So, just to even be in the wild card and still have his team believe, even back in like 2022, they got off to a slow start, like 2-6 or something, and they just found their way back into the playoffs. Or I think they just missed the playoffs, but they were still 9-8. So just the belief he has in a team, he's still a top 5 head coach for me. But, he is deducted from, like the Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tier, just because he hasn't, won a playoff game, I believe, in like 7 years plus. So yeah, there is some accountability for that I had to throw in.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was kind of like a thing I was shaky on, putting Tomlin that high. But I think just getting there is, an accomplishment. It's not it's not totally his fault that, they just aren't giving him quarterbacks. Like he got lucky with Ben Roethlisberger and having him for 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it was.
I don't blame him necessarily for their losses, because the past couple of years at Buffalo, at Chiefs, I'm not expecting them to win those games. But there were some of the games you look back against Jacksonville. I know that defense was really good, but you guys had the best offense in the league that season, the Killer Bees back in 2020. You got off to that 11-0 start. You're hosting a home playoff game in the first round. And you let Cleveland drop 48 on you. I mean,
yeah.
Not all of it's on Tomlin by means. Ben Roethlisberger, that team just didn't show up that game. But at the end of the day, I want at least some success in the playoffs before I put back up in best coach. But obviously, I still have the respect for him. Top 5. Yeah. He's still a dog.
I think if you gave Mike Tomlin so many of these other teams that are I'll just spoil it. I do not have Nick Sirianni on my top 10 because I don't really think he's that great of a coach.
I don't think anyone should.
But I think if you gave Mike Tomlin that roster, with that offense, that defense, I think he makes them, a consistent 1 or 2 seed. So it's just
some of his moves though are still strange, like hiring Arthur Smith.
That I didn't get. Right after,
I know he had success in Tennessee with Tannehill, so maybe he's just really built for the OC. But just the way he was using Bijan, Kyle Pitts, it wasn't really that good. Yeah. But we'll see.
So that was year 5. So
my top 5, year 5.
So now my 5 is another guy you named. I have Kyle Shanahan at 5, and my one reason for him probably being this high is just because he hasn't been able to win a Super Bowl. But that's also, it's not totally on him, because when you have to, play Patrick Mahomes, it's Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, and in 2 of those Super Bowls, you were leading in the fourth quarter. So maybe it's kind of his fault that, he can't run those late game offenses to win him the game, but he's still, his ability to get his team to the Super Bowl is an accomplishment in itself. So for that, you've got to give him his respect for that, and his ability to, do it with different teams, do it as an OC and as a head coach for the Niners twice. Like you said, with Brock Purdy, who really nobody thought was going to be anything when he's the last pick in the draft, and he's turning him into an MVP candidate with how he runs that offense. So you got to give Shanahan his
Shanahan deserves a Super Bowl, man.
He does. He really does. Like I said yesterday, I think he can get one as long as they don't play the Chiefs. I don't think he can beat the Chiefs. Anybody else. They play the Bills, anybody, the Bengals even. If it was Bengals Niners, I think that'd be a good Super Bowl, but I think the Niners would win that.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So now we each have our top 5. Now we head into the bottom 5 where I'm really more intrigued, just because, less obvious names. Number 6 for my head coaches, I have Sean McDermott. One of the best. I know he's known for his defense, but just one of the best leaders of men in this NFL. He's able to just win over this locker room. And ever since Josh Allen has come into the league, they have, or since 2019, because his rookie season, not really count that. It was just kind of a disaster. But since 2019, Buffalo's averaged 11 wins per season. So they are among the best in the NFL, and that alone gives him a lot of praise. And just what he's able to do. And what I was most impressed by was maybe this last season. They weren't, winning a lot of games like you'd think at the beginning. They were 6-6. And then that story came out about the 9/11 story, how he
that was crazy.
It did. And, I think the reporter was trying to, get people to turn against him. But that's when Buffalo ended up going on their huge streak and winning the division, winning 11 games again, smacking the Steelers around in the wild card round. And then missed kick against Tyler Bass. I thought that was a well-played game on Buffalo's side. But, at the end of the day, Chiefs just snuck by due to a miss. It happens. Who knows what happened overtime? Mahomes probably still wins it. But at the end of the day, that was a hard-fought game. And Buffalo, they're similar to Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. They're a great team that would probably have a Super Bowl or two if the Chiefs didn't exist. But unfortunately, for a lot of these coaches, they do. So they probably may never, get that praise they rightfully deserve. But still, I can't deny how great the Bills are in the regular season. 2 of the last 3 years, they're the top point differential team, so they can just blow teams out to death. But, one of his weaknesses is kind of, obviously that late game execution when it gets close, especially to a team like the Chiefs. But even, some regular season games against like the Eagles last year, the Dolphins, just some questionable things down the end of games when it gets close. But, you can't deny the success he's had.
Yeah. I know we talked about it a little bit and how I'm more iffy on Sean McDermott than you are, just because I don't know. Just I always go back and think, like, I remember so many times where I'm just like, what is he doing? Like, why is he calling this defense? Why is he doing this and that? And a lot of the times it's because he's playing a player like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. So there's really no defense you can call to beat that guy, but I'll give it to you because he definitely has the reputation. He definitely has the reputation of a top 10 head coach, winning seasons, bringing the Bills back to, back to a playoff team for the first time in what was it, like 20 years or something?
Oh, yeah, no, back in 2017 with Tyrod Taylor, and then they quickly transitioned into Josh Allen. They have like a rough first year, but, Josh Allen was a project, so no one was expecting it. And the second year, mainly because of their defense, they go right back to the playoffs, almost beat the Texans in the wild card with Deshaun Watson. So just what this team is able to do, and like I said, rally around. I think the players had a huge respect for him. My takeaway, just the way they still want to play for him after that story came out and they were struggling, firing the offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, like I said, and it's a valid point. Some of the late game execution looks a little bit rough, but when you look at who he's playing in these playoffs, it's just kind of whatever. I think I'm curious to see how they do this year. Obviously, kind of going through a little bit of a change with no Diggs or anything. But at the end of the day, you can't deny how good this team is in the regular season.
Yeah. Maybe I'm more so on the it's Josh Allen, but I'll give that to you. Okay, 6. My 6. I'm curious where you have this coach specifically, because I was kind of sifting around, not really sure where to put him. I knew he wasn't quite in the top 5, but I didn't know if he should be higher or lower. But I kind of like where he's at on my list compared to my other coaches. I have not Sean McVay, sorry. I have Matt LaFleur at 6 for the Packers. I know we talked about him the other day too, and how, he was kind of catching a lot of flack for those playoff losses with Aaron Rodgers, like the one in Green Bay where they lost to the Niners in that like crazy snow game when they were the 1 seed, and then they lost again to the Brady Bucks that were, team of destiny, if you want to call it. But I think Matt LaFleur is a incredible head coach. We talked about his December record. What does he still not have a loss in December?
Yeah,
His coaching career, which is just nuts considering he's been in the NFL for, a good amount of time now. And he's been able to kind of rebuild that team very quickly. Like when you lose a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it usually takes a team a while to, kind of get back on their feet, find their guy. But no, they swung, took a big swing on Jordan Love in the first round. Packers fans were pissed because they're like, dude, we got to help out Rodgers if we want to win a Super Bowl. That Jordan Love pick looks like, one of the best picks of the past few years because they got him ready behind Rodgers, and now he's, competing to be a top 10 quarterback. So maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I know you and I are both high on Jordan Love going into this year, going into the next few years because of how he's looked. Even last year, he progressed so much throughout the year, and you could see it. They started out like, I think going into that Thanksgiving Day game, they were like 2 or 3 games below 500. And then after that win against the Lions, they just took off. And so I'm higher on Matt LaFleur than probably most people. I know people still respect him, but they probably don't have him top 6. But I really respect him. I really think he's a very good head coach that just is waiting for, the right timing.
At number 7, I have Matt LaFleur. So right behind you. That's why. For all the reasons he said, I mean, what he transferred with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was kind of in a stalemate for a while with Mike McCarthy, and then comes back to back at the first season, goes to the NFC Championship game. Then the next 2 seasons, Aaron Rodgers really takes off as a passer. Devontae Adams is, regardless, the best receiver in the league. And, they're high flying. And like I said, though, similar to all these coaches, some question marks in the playoffs because even the Brady Buccaneers, that game was very questionable, just the ending. Do you go for it there? Do you let the MVP go for it? I would say yeah, but, they kick the field goal. The defense can't get a stop. That's that. Then the next season, I mean, this was just an example of why I have Kyle Shanahan higher on my list going into Green Bay and just win that game against them, the 1 seed. Despite only the 49ers didn't score a single offensive touchdown that game. Their offense was kind of, just whatever, but they ran the ball late and, just ate up a lot of clock on the Packers. And at the end of the day, I do, dink him a little bit for the playoffs, but then to go right in, have a last weird year with Aaron Rodgers, but to even rally, because I think it was bad, like 3-8, they go 8-8. And if they win the last game they're in, they unfortunately lose to a Red Hot Lions team as well. But, at the end of the day, going right into Jordan Love, struggling early, and then just find their groove, going into Dallas and manhandling them, almost scoring 50 points. There's a lot of credit there. So, and with the expectations rightfully so high this year, I think they'll succeed. And like I said, that December stat is still wild because he's been in the league since 2018 and hasn't lost a December game. So anyone who wants to have free money, just bet on the Packers in December. So with that being said, yeah, number 7 on my list, definitely one of the best head coaches in this league.
Mm-hmm. He knows how to get hot at the right time. You want to get hot late in the year going into the playoffs, and that's exactly
he's able to do that.
Yep. So now number 7 for me. I don't think you're going to agree with this because you've already named him, which means, I've obviously got him lower on my list. I have Sean McVay at 7. I respect the hell out of Sean McVay. I think the reason I put him a little lower than you did on my list is I think the league has kind of caught up to what he did, those first few years with the Super Bowl and everything. I think they've kind of
He only
adjusted.
won the Super Bowl like 2 years ago.
He did win the Super Bowl, so you got to give him that. But it could just be injuries too. I just feel like there's been other coaches that have, just surpassed him is all. Like, I don't think it's anything that he does bad, especially, because the one, down year they had to call in, Baker Mayfield pretty much off the street to come
Even
in.
that first game, he's able to rally a win for them. That's what really separates a coach in my mind. I mean, I don't agree, but I feel like he started this whole movement of young, innovative coaches, the motions, that really became a huge thing, and every coach has been using it since then. And just the tree he's already built out last year, even though he's on the defensive side, still with Sean McVay, Raheem Morris goes off, Kevin O'Connell the year before, Rams OC goes to the Vikings, and just kind of, transform. I mean, leads the Vikings to 13 wins his first season. So there's a good track record so far with, some of these young offensive minds. And he led that rejuvenation. And I would arguably say, besides the Super Bowl year, this may have been his best coaching year, just because the Rams were not expected to be that good at all.
Yeah.
And just the way he plugged in Puka, like I talked about, Stafford looked back to MVP form, and this team was on the brink. They lost by 1 point against the Lions in the wild card to going back to the divisional round. And who the heck knows what happens there? If they play Tampa Bay or whatever, they might win that. Gotta give credit where credit's due. I really think, this team is still Sean McVay. I know you're high on the Rams as a team, so I know you respect Sean McVay. Yeah, I mean, it may seem like a big difference, but really after one, it's kind of just where you think everyone stacks up. But just to have them, I can respect it.
Really, all these top 10 head coaches are really good coaches. Like, these aren't, just because a guy's lower on our list for like either one of us.
I just wanted to give him the respect because he has great regular seasons as well. Like every coach, like Kyle Shanahan, Mike Tomlin, Sean McDermott, Matt LaFleur, but he has the Super Bowl, so I got to put him over those guys because he was able to accomplish it 2 seasons ago. So that's why I kind of gave him the edge over these other guys. With that being said, number 8, I'm going with a guy that would probably beat anyone up in a fist fight, Dan Campbell. Obviously, whenever someone is able to have a success like this with the Lions franchise has been poverty for basically since their existence. This was arguably their best team ever assembled in last year too, finishing 9-8, carrying that momentum into this season on the verge of a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, maybe due to his coaching, maybe due to just the 49ers playing out of their minds that second half, they fell short. But this team is still a top threat to come out of the NFC this year, and a huge reason is just Dan Campbell as a lead motivator. I have him lower on my list than some might have him just because he's probably not the biggest X's and O's guy out there, and willing to admit that. But he gets his team ready to play every week, and the Lions are always punching you in the mouth. And to do that 17 to 18 times a season, it's mentally draining to being the team that always throws the first punch. But they do that, and they're aggressive, they're hungry, and I respect the boldness he has on that. Just to be able to go for it whenever he wants without giving a single crap of what people think, and just the way he transformed this team within a couple seasons. A lot of people questioned the hire at the time, but now he brought Jared Goff, and a lot of it, the credit is to Ben Johnson as well, bringing Jared Goff though back from basically being on the verge of Super Bowl QB to maybe the way he was playing, like a backup QB to now a solidified starter, top 10 again, gets paid. So huge credit to the way Dan Campbell has his boys playing. He's my number 8.
We can make quick work of this spot because I also have him at 8. So I'll just, I go off of all the things you just said. I think Dan Campbell's the best motivator in the NFL because I think he motivates just about any fan, even if you're not a fan of the Lions. He makes you want to root for that team because he's just a pure football guy. I know he, turned some heads in that 49ers game, making those overly aggressive calls. But at the same time, I respect the hell out of it because he never changed his philosophy throughout the year. That was what he was going to do week 1. And he did it all the way up to the NFC Championship. So I respect for sticking to his guns because if he, changes up and, starts playing scared in that game. He probably loses the
Oh,
respect.
and then if they lose, it's like, why'd you switch up? We were going to go Super Bowl if you stuck with you did all season.
Yeah. He would have lost
I
respect, players and fans. They would have said like, "Oh, he's doubting himself." But I respect.
It's always like that lose-lose situation, really,
Mhm.
unless they somehow win it. But yeah, overall, if I needed one coach to give me a pep talk, it's him. On the X's and O's, he's probably a little bit lesser than obviously these guys, but he still knows what it takes to win in this league and is very smart with his timeouts and just the way he executes. So with that being said, both of us pleasantly had Dan Campbell at number 8. Number 9, maybe a little cheat, but I'm throwing two guys in here, the Harbaugh brothers. I think they're kind of on the same pedestal for me. John Harbaugh obviously coaches a great team in the Ravens. That team is always, similar to Mike Tomlin, above 500 with Lamar Jackson. They have a 75 winning percentage. So that alone is really impressive in of itself. But similar to Mike Tomlin, I have to deduct him for the recent playoff success hasn't been pretty. I think they've won 2 playoff games since 2014. So you are going to lose some points there. But, at the end of the day, this team is still one of the best regular season teams in the league, still one of the most feared teams. And with that being said, I also have Jim Harbaugh as well here. Jim Harbaugh, when he was with the 49ers, 3 straight NFC championship games in 4 seasons, 1 Super Bowl trip where he lost to his brother. These guys, I think, like you said, Jim Harbaugh, one of the best college coaches last year, the best, just the way he transformed that offense, made J.J. McCarthy go top 10. I'm not sure another coach would have been able to make that happen. So I got to give him his flowers there, and I'm going to throw just the Harbaugh brothers together as a pair as the top, as my number 9 spot. Maybe, some people would call it cheap, but I really think they're the same guy almost.
Okay, I'll let you have it because I think Jim is a little better than his brother, but I still think they're both great coaches. I
do too, but John beat him in the Super Bowl, so I got to put them.
That's a good point. I just left John out of this. Like he probably is number 11 on my list, so this is no disrespect to him. Number 9, I have a young guy who was Coach of the Year finalist this year. I have DeMeco Ryans. I'm super high on DeMeco Ryans. I think he's a really good young NFL coach. He might be one of those guys, like you said, that McVay, kind of paved the way for with these young head coaches, because before it was all, we're only hiring guys who have, been coaches for 20 years in the NCAA.
Jeff Fisher getting another run at it.
Right, exactly. So I think DeMeco Ryans, we saw it last year with, that Texans team that was expected to finish bottom of the barrel. He takes them to the divisional round where, they just ran into a really good Panthers team. CJ Stroud, Rookie of the Year, for a little bit of time, MVP talks. He's well in the MVP race right now, just betting wise. So the fact he's done that all in 1 year is incredible. He's only made that team better this offseason. So I expect a lot more winning from him on that Texans team. And I think Houston football is going to be at an all-time high, even higher than when they were with J.J. Watt, because now they have an MVP quarterback.
Yeah, no. I mean, I love DeMeco. Obviously, great first season. A lot of expectations, though, going into this season. So I'm really curious how he does, with the high expectations. Because last year they took everyone by storm, but now there's going to be film on CJ Stroud, film on that defense. So how do they adapt? That's kind of the biggest question mark. But he's definitely, I would have had him in my top 15 for sure. My last one, though, number 10. Going to give this guy, I feel like that's been overlooked for a while, or just recently, due to some injuries last season. But I'm still going to give him his respect. Zach Taylor is my number 10 head coach. This guy, at the end of the day, just knows what it takes to win. Since he's gotten Joe Burrow, a real QB in this room. First season fully healthy because rookie was a little banged up. Him and Jamar Chase, they go all the way to the Super Bowl. The next year, they put up a great fight against the Chiefs. Followed just short, though. And then last year, They were just getting hot too. That Joe Burrow, beating the 49ers by like 20 points. They were just feeling it in San Francisco. I think they were like 6-4, 7-4. Then in Baltimore, Joe Burrow gets injured, and then that kind of derails their season. But even then, Zach Taylor still made Jake Browning look like an NFL competent quarterback. It looked like a guy that could play. They were still in games. They were never really getting blown out. So that's a huge respect, just kind of, plug and play, despite all the injuries they had, despite T. Higgins having a down year. He still found a way to get them competitive, win football games, still just barely miss out on the playoffs. So I'm going to give Zach Taylor some love. He's had a lot of success, and he seems to be the only kryptonite to Andy Reid right now in any in the NFL where he can just give him fits. So I'm going to give him his respect despite last season, being a rough, but most of it was due to injury because I really feel like the Bengals were getting hot again at that right time. Joe Burrow was playing his best ball. The offense was looking great, and then the injury happens, and it's kind of like, crap. But just even, like I said, huge respect for guys that are just able to plug and play. And Jake Browning, didn't look out of fit. He looked like an NFL QB that can just, pick off the street and just, play some ball. So huge credit to Zach Taylor for that, despite missing the playoffs. So he's my last coach that I want to give respect to as my top 10.
Okay. You hit on every point because I got Zach Taylor at 10 too. So it's good to see we kicked off this list with, I think we had very similar top 10 coaches. I think the only difference I had is I had DeMeco Ryans, you had John Harbaugh in there, and that's it. That's the only difference. And, like you said, you give
my first honorable mention. I just want to give a shout out because I know you said your number 11 might be like John Harbaugh or whatever. Mine would be Shane Steichen because I think he's right on the verge. Yep. If Anthony Richardson and this Colts team takes another step, a team that could be watch out for. But overall, as you see, Nick pulls up our top 10 list. Let us know in the comments what you guys agree, disagree with. Overall, Nick, pleasantly surprised. The exact ones we had were number 1, Andy Reid. That was kind of obvious, but still getting Dan Campbell at 8 right, Zach Taylor at 10 right, exactly. And, Stefanski was like 1 or 2 points off. Same with Mike Tomlin, Kyle Shanahan. Sean McVay was still in our top 10. So overall, very solid list. Matt LaFleur was 1 spot off for each of us. So overall, great minds think alike as the quote goes. But I'm curious, people in the comments, let us know what you guys agree, disagree with this list. Did we miss anyone? Are we too low anyone, too high anyone? Are we smoking that Andy Reid pack too much? Let us know in the comments what you guys agree, disagree with. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Top 10 head coaches in the NFL. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.